Hello, I'm David Jones, and I thought this time round we would take a look at the ever popular NASDAQ 100 stock market index. It's been a bit of a crazy 3 to 4 months for stock markets. We saw steady trends into the summer, big sell-offs into end of October, and an enormous bounce back, relatively speaking, over the last month or so, bringing us back to and slightly beyond where this market was at the end of July. So what's the trade up here? Buy it, and we're going back to the all-time highs from 2 years ago, or short sell because the market has overreached itself. So as usual in this video, I'll talk about some of the recent news driving this market. Then we will jump onto the charts and see what the trade might be. Have a look at the big levels. I do know which way I'm leaning at the moment. I think there are two different trades here, depending if you're more of a medium-term trader or a short-term trader, but more of that when we jump on the charts. Before we get into that, just a couple of things. If you've watched any of the stuff I do, you know I do a few other things as well. I run a trading course that's been running for a couple of years that looks at both short-term and medium-term trading. You can find out about that by going to the website. It's got 5-star Trustpilot reviews. You know, I am somebody who does actually trade and talks about it publicly and shows results on YouTube, not one of these people who has a great theory about how trading should work. I actually do it. Go to the website to find out more. Part of the trading course is a WhatsApp group where I update every day stuff I'm looking at, markets I'm watching, trades I've got running, any questions, all of that sort of stuff. I opened up the WhatsApp group a few months ago. If you'd like to try the WhatsApp group for a month, you can again go to the website. You can sign up for a month. You've got to pay for it. But if you use the code YouTube, you get 20% off the first month. And the second thing, or the third thing, over the last month, I ran a couple of invitation-only webinars in conjunction with a broker I'm partnered with. And what we looked at in these webinars, they're about an hour and 10 minutes long. The first webinar was, if you had a magic wand and could change one thing about your trading, what would that be? So I had responses from about 60, 70 people. So we looked at that. Some really common trading issues in that. It's a really interesting webinar, I thought. And the second one I did a couple of weeks ago, if 70% plus of traders lose, what do we need to do differently? You know, I'm a consistently profitable trader. It took a long time to get there. We know that most people lose. Most people give up in about a year, which is fair enough, because why would you carry on if you're still losing money? But I did that webinar as well. So if you'd like access to those, drop me an email and I'll send you the links to the recording. My email address is dj@davidjonestrading.co.uk. As usual, all of this stuff, link to the website, the WhatsApp group voucher, and my email address is in the description to this video. If you'd like to find out more, drop me an email. Any questions, send me an email. I've got plenty of time on my hands. Quite happy to answer any questions via email. And that's it. Okay. Let's get into it. Let's take a look at this NASDAQ in a bit more detail, talk about what's been driving it, and let's see where the trades might be. It's been a great year for stock markets. I think there's been a lot of fear on the way up. You know, classic quote is that bull markets that are rising, climb a wall of fear. And there's been plenty of fear about inflation, interest rate rises, all the way up for these markets. But where we are today, the NASDAQ 100 is up 45% for the year to date. So that is a fantastic performance. So where it's trading now, we're at the highest level since about January 2022. So what's that? 22-month highs on the NASDAQ. And we're just below 800 points or so below the all-time highs from a couple of years ago, November 2021, when inflation really started to spook markets and we saw these markets turn lower. So we're only about 5% below those all-time highs. So it has been an absolutely cracking year from expected. So what's driven this market? I think we've had, you know, earnings. Companies' earnings have been better than perhaps many were expecting. You know, in the era of high inflation that we've been through, perhaps there was concern, probably quite rightly, that it would impact on companies' earnings. Higher interest rates have an impact on the economy as well. But companies' earnings have perhaps been a positive surprise for investors. So that definitely hasn't done any harm for stock markets. And I think markets think that the US central bank is done with raising rates. You know, when we have higher rates around the world, the worry is it's going to slow down the economy, going to make it harder for companies to sustain the sort of profits they've had before. If they need to borrow money, obviously it's a lot more expensive. And there's a feeling that we're at the end of the rate rising cycle. Let's see. I mean, I'm recording this on Tuesday. Later today, we've got the latest minutes from the US Central Bank, the Federal Reserve, their last meeting on interest rates. So absolutely, we should expect some volatility off the back of that. Let's see what markets read into these minutes. But it's been pretty much positive. We've had some wobbles along the way, particularly since July. But here we are, within spitting distance, 800 points of the all-time highs in the NASDAQ. But where next? Do you just want to buy in blindly and hope the market goes up? Do you want us to take the view? Well, actually, the market is massively overcooked up here. There's still a lot of potential trouble along the way. What are we going to do? I've got my views. Let's jump onto the charts and take a look at things in a bit more detail, see what are the important levels to watch and where the possible trades might be. Right, let's take a look at this NASDAQ. NASDAQ 100 is what we're looking at. I think it's very interesting. I also think it's very confusing. There are absolutely arguments for being a buyer or a seller, and that is pretty much always the case in markets. If you look at a market and you think, well, it's obvious which way it's going to go, then I think that's a sign that you perhaps haven't been trading for that long. There are always arguments to be a seller or a buyer. Otherwise, markets would move just in one direction, either up or down, as everyone agrees. But anyway, this is where we are. At the moment, at the time of recording, we're trading just below 16,000. We have the all-time highs from whenever it is, November 2021, so a couple of years ago now, up at just shy of 16,800. So what's going to happen next? Is this market going to blast off to those all-time highs, perhaps take them out and set fresh all-time highs? Or the question for me, what's interesting for me, is we're now back up and through, albeit just for a day and a half, through the highs we saw in the summer, back in July. So in July, the market traded as high as about 15,950. And here we are. We're back up here again. When we saw that sell-off from here, the market did drop almost a couple of thousand points in the end, about 1,900 points in the end, into the October lows. And then we've seen this massive turnaround. I think I did actually call this on YouTube in the live stream, where I wondered if this ended up being a bit of a false break and the market would rally. I didn't trade it though, so it doesn't count. Opinions without money are worthless. Everyone's got an opinion without risking any money. You've got to risk any money to make it a strong opinion, in my opinion. So I didn't trade it. So I've not been able to get in on this rise. I've made money on the markets, but it does annoy me a bit that we've seen this massive rally. Anyway, so this is where we are now. What happens next? Let's take a step back and take a look at the year to date. We had the trend. It looked like that. The market fell out of the trend in September and then pushed a bit lower in October, traded back to the May levels. So in October, we saw like a 5-month low for the NASDAQ, but we've completely springboarded back off that, and we're trading at levels not seen since about January 2022. So we're at, 22-month highs? Something like that. So for me, that trend line needs to be redrawn. So the trend line now actually looks like this. Now, I do not like chasing markets. I would much rather buy the dip here. But as we've seen over the last month, we've not had much of a dip. We've seen fairly relentless moves higher and similar moves in other markets like the S&P 500, for example. But it is interesting here. If you thought that stock markets were absolutely overheated, then this is the place to go short. To me, it looks like if you're leaning towards selling short and trying to profit from a market sliding, then here we are. I'd rather the thing stopped going up first. I'm recording this on Tuesday. Yesterday, Monday, we saw the market push higher again. At the time of recording, the market hasn't actually opened yet. The candle that we're seeing going on now is in the out of hours market. Later on today, we've got the Fed minutes on Tuesday. So for me, I'm quite happy. Let's get Tuesday out of the way and see where the market is on Wednesday. But if you wanted to go short up here, if you think this market is going to go back to the lows from only a month ago, don't forget, they're about 2,000 points lower than where we are now. It's an interesting short. We'd need to give it a bit of room because it's a volatile market. If we go back, look at this big day here, 14th of November, the market goes from a low of about 15,500 to a high of 15,860. So it moves 360 points on that day. So if you're going to trade the NASDAQ, with 20-point stop losses, chances are you're going to get stopped out. So we need to give this market time to move around. So for me, one trading idea, be a seller. So the market, in the short term at least, has got a bit overcooked. The big trend for the year is still up. The market's a bit overcooked. Go short with a few 100-point stop would be one of my ideas for that. If it does sell off, I absolutely want to be looking to buy the dip in this market. I mean, the perfect place to buy would be where it was at the end of October. Will we get back there again? Who knows? Let's see. Let's see what happens. But I think it's really interesting here. And the flip side is, if this market carries on blasting up, the next level I'm going to watch is obviously the old highs, around about 16.8, that sort of area, 16.6 to 16.8. If we break out through there, you know, traditionally that would be a really bullish sign. You know, we saw it on the way up, of course. After the COVID lows, the market would break through previous highs and just carry on pushing higher. So I think we've got a very interesting couple of months for US stock markets. We have, of course, traditionally the Santa rally as well. I think statistically, markets do tend to do well at this time of year. Let's see what happens there. But, you know, we have had this really strong rally over the last month or so. So I think it's interesting. In the short term, I would be leaning towards a short. That's what I would do. Even though I'm bullish on the NASDAQ, I'd be leaning towards a short up here. I just need to see the thing stop going up. And as of yesterday, Monday, it is still going up. Let's take a look at the RSI. So the RSI, this is a 10-day RSI. Not surprisingly, very overbought. Not very overbought, but overbought. Up at these levels. We have the very briefest of oversold signals on that breakdown towards 14,000. And this is where we are in the market. We've always got to be cautious, though, with these overbought, oversold signals, particularly in a strong market. You know, if we go back to May, when this market really was running higher, we did have overbought there. And you can see what happened. The market carried on for another couple of months. You know, so just because the RSI was overbought didn't mean the market was going to sell off. Let's see. Let's see what happens. So for me, you know, one idea is to be short, thinking the market has got overstretched. If you take a look at, let's take a look at a moving average. So I've got a 20-day moving average on the chart. And when markets are trending, moving averages do well. Market breaks through the moving average, off we go. Various buy signals on the way up. But since July, we have had, broadly speaking, this sideways moving market. You know, we're quite overextended from the moving average at the moment. To give us a sell signal, it needs to break down below 15.2, where the moving average is trading currently. So, like I say, I think it is a confusing market up here. The trend has been great this year, up more than 40%, but we're back in the danger zone from the summer, and we're back at the area where the market completely turned down a couple of years ago. So if this market is going to run out of steam, then here we are. So like I say, I prefer to be short in the short term because it's got a bit overcooked with a decent stop. But absolutely, I'd be a buyer of the dip. So medium term, I still think this market could well go higher. So that's my position. You know, the trend for the year hasn't really changed, but over the last month, is it a bit overcooked? I think it's going to be a really interesting end to 2023 for these US stock markets. That's it for the NASDAQ 100. Really interesting market. Confusing market, I think. Absolutely. Arguments to go either long or short up here. Clearly that the big trend for the year has been up, but we are, as I said on the video, you know, we're running into the danger zone, cue the music, potentially for this market. So I think absolutely arguments for, you know, I made it clear in the short term. I think perhaps short would be my preferred direction in this market. But let's see. We'll take a look in the live stream on Friday in a bit more detail. So don't forget, if you'd like to see those two webinars, they're just over an hour long, each one. If you could change one thing about your trading, what would it be? Some really common problems in there. And what was interesting for me, more than half of those problems were psychological problems. They weren't strategy based. What moving average should I use? What Bollinger Band should I use? All that nonsense. It wasn't that. It was psychological. And if 70% of traders lose, what do I need to do differently? I think a painful journey for all of us. Most of us don't make it, sort of quit after a year or so of trading. But if you want to see those, send me an email. You can join the WhatsApp group directly. You can sign up on my website, use the code YouTube to get a 20% discount on that. And that's it really, isn't it? We're all done. So yeah, have a look at that for a lot more detail. All the details are in the description. We'll do the live stream on Friday, see how these markets are on Friday after this Fed minutes this evening. on Tuesday this evening, my time. So until then, thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed, click on subscribe, all the usual, click on like, all that stuff. And until the next time, good luck with your trading.